All right, so movies. I'm a nerd. Like, do you have any like crazy movies that just, were formative in your like creative stuff, like just the old school stuff?
The 80s, man. I was a child of the 80s. 1984, I think my mom got a VCR. And so I was 12. And we got a VCR. They had just gotten cheaper because the original VCRs from like the late 70s, early 80s were 5,000 pounds and $5,000. And so when the VCR hit the market with a cheaper version, I convinced her to buy two. And I started dubbing films because at 12, when we got that first one, I went and got a little membership at a video store that was like a half-mile walk from my house. And so I would hit it after school. I'd go up there, you get a movie for $1. And so I would save my lunch money. Instead of eating lunch, I would go get a movie and then dub it onto another VHS tape. I was dubbing all the movies back then. That was before they were putting scramblers, before they were coating the tape with the little scramblers. And we built a library. I was really proud of this library that I had built over the course of like the next couple of years by doing this, because you could fit 3, sometimes 4 movies when you dubbed onto the slow speed. I think it was called SLP. Because you could get that tape up to 6 hours long.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
absolutely.
You get up to 4 movies on a VHS tape. And so I was dubbing everything. So I was a child of all them films. Like I saw them all numerous times. If it came out in the 80s, if we're talking, Alien, Terminator, Purple Rain, anything with John Cusack in it, whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's like all of these movies were very formative for me. Purple Rain mostly, though. If I watched any movie the most, I probably saw Purple Rain more times than anything, but also because like many of us back then, you would put it in and push play and let it go because it was like playing a record.
I had like Nintendo.
So you're a little younger than me.
I'm 50 last 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so you're just a year younger than me. Because Nintendo, like by the time Nintendo hit, I was probably like 15 or 16 at that point. And so
the first Nintendo, like the Mario style?
Yeah, Castlevania and all that. I was like 15. Yeah. And so my little brothers were into it a lot more than I was. Like, don't get me wrong, I liked to play it, but I was already like, writing songs and scratching it. I played Super Mario Brothers. I rescued the princess. I played Castlevania. I played a couple of games, but it was not really my thing. Kind of like how skateboarding, I missed skateboarding the same exact way. I was just like a year too old. All my friends were actually older than me, so I was into whatever they were into. So by 14, 15, I was already rapping and DJing and graffitiing. You know what I'm saying? I was already like out the house. I wasn't playing Nintendo. My brothers played a lot of Nintendo. We got one eventually, you know what I'm saying? And my brothers, they kicked its butt.
Hip hop's 50. What do you think of that? They say because they found a Cool Herc flyer that they put a birthday on the culture of hip hop, which I think is weird, kind of.
All due respect to hip hop, and I understand people's need to put a box around something or to figure out how to compartmentalize it so that they can better understand it or better receive it, And funny enough, I look back on my life involved in this culture and this music, and I see the boxes that I've lived in the whole time. So this is nothing new. Hip hop has always been very, I guess you would say, very intrigued with stats, numbers, boxes. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not surprised that people needed to figure out a birth date for it. But me personally, I don't know if it matters. I love it, and I love that something made it this far. When they tried to convince me it was just a fad. But when I think about me, if it's 50, that means it was born in 1973. I was 1. I didn't fall in love. I didn't fall in love with hip hop till I didn't discover it until 9, 10. I didn't fall in love with it till 11, 12, 13. So at that point, it was already alive and going. So for me, it's like, I don't care about a birthday or a need to market. And truth be told, it's like, what is it? You know, this party, right? The Cool Herc party. Again, all respect to it, especially from a conceptual space, like needing to box it. But at the same time, it's just kind of like, you know, I don't know, man. It's like trying to say the birth of a culture. What? A birthday for something as big and as alive, this organism is I don't know. I don't know that I need to worry about the birth date. The thing that I love most about this celebration that we're having, this 50 years, the main thing that I love about it is the reemergence of artists older than me having this moment in the sun and feeling like they're getting respect that they haven't seen in 10, 15, 20 years, some of them, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, for me, I really enjoy that. I love watching some of these, the rappers that were my heroes, the people that I looked up to. I love seeing them smile, you know what I'm saying? Because that gives me hope that maybe in 10, 15 years, I could smile, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I do love that. And so I love everything about the celebration of this, but I just wish it didn't require us to like put it in a box in order to celebrate it. I love the idea of celebrating this because of the humans that get uplifted during the celebration. But as far as actually looking at the culture and being like, yo, it's 50 and this and that, you know, it's like, I don't know that matters to me as much. You know, I feel like it's more than 50. It's a million years old. And we could celebrate its birthday every day. You know what I mean?
All right. So my first official question is about movies. Not about movies, but it's inspired by a movie. Almost Famous. Do you dig that flick?
I seen it.
About the music journalist kid?
Yeah, I seen it. But I didn't fall in love with it the way some of my contemporaries cite it. You know, here's the thing. When you're involved in the music industry, you're going to gravitate, or if you just want to be involved in the music industry, you're going to gravitate towards books and films that center the music industry. So I get it. I get why that film is popular for some people. But it just didn't land with me, you know, and I don't know why. I guess maybe because that moment that it zoomed in on, maybe it's a classic rock thing, right?
Right.
I had been a wedding DJ for so long that I kind of was the taste that classic rock and all of that whole vibe left with me. I wasn't, you know, and so when that movie came out, I seen it. Probably I rented it. I don't think I seen it in the theater or not. I probably rented the DVD from Blockbuster, and yeah, that movie didn't really resonate with me. It wasn't my thing.
The kid in the movie, the main character, asked an interesting question though that I think kind of fits. He says, "Do you have to be depressed to write a sad song? Do you have to be in love to write a love song? And is it better if it really happened to you?"
I don't think you need to be depressed to write a sad song. I think that sadness is universal. It actually is the thing that connects and bonds us all. And so sadness and hope and love, they're all very connected to me. Sadness is oftentimes based in empathy. That's what makes you human, you know, is our ability to empathize and feel something that we're not actually experiencing ourselves. And so with that said, I don't think it requires depression or even feeling sad to write a sad song. I think it requires just the ability to understand, relate, and communicate, you know, to write a good sad song. I don't even think I was sad when I wrote sad songs necessarily. Writing songs for me has always been like solving puzzles, cracking codes from the very beginning. Well, way back in the day when I was a little dude, writing songs was cracking a code by meaning I was trying to emulate what my heroes were doing. How do I crack the code they cracked? And so in doing that, I would follow the path that they laid out for me. You know, I would look at, okay, here's, especially stories. Here's the story. Okay, this is the arc. This is the resolution. When you become a storyteller or a writer and rap songs are really your only mentor, it has a weird effect on your ability to tell a story, because you've got 3 minutes to tell this story. You have to say as much as you can in short a time. So you're writing short stories, and your arc often has to be extreme. And so I was writing songs, I was, 18, 19 years old, listening to Ice Cube and trying to figure out how to do what he does.
Right.
In my own 4-minute moment. You know what I'm saying? And so it didn't come from sadness, but some of my stories were sad. Now, the sadness in that story would have been inspired by something I saw or experienced firsthand. And that's that humanity part, because you can see something, you can read an article, you can even watch a movie and be inspired by that, because you're connecting with the sadness, even if you're not sad. One of the things my whole life, people, not my whole life, but my whole career, people predicted that they were going to meet the sad rapper. They assumed it. They thought that when they met me, I was going to be sad and brooding. And oftentimes people would be surprised that I was actually kind of like this corny dude with dad jokes, even as a younger me. I've been a dad since I was 21. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, even as a younger me, I was that corny dude with dad jokes. I was always trying to make people laugh. I had this sense of humor that I was projecting for the same reason that I wanted to rap. I wanted to be the center of attention. I wanted to make people laugh. And as a little kid, it was a defense mech, because I hung out with older kids, and the older kids, they could bully you. They were tougher. They were bigger. They were older. So as a way to protect myself, I made them laugh. And so with that said, I feel like I didn't get sad until I started to accidentally become the caricature of the song.
Gotcha.
Now don't get me wrong. I'm sure that I probably, due to childhood traumas or environmentally, the things around my world and my life, there was plenty going on in me as a person to give me sadnesses or moments of depression and what have you, just like all of us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like we all have the tendency or basically we all have a story, and most of our stories are kind of fucked up.
So you just tap into your humanity more than you tap into sadness.
100%. Because oftentimes when I tap into my own sadness, it's harder to tell that story in a way that other people can actually fully relate to. Here's the thing about writing songs, is that if you're not communicating to another person and they don't understand it, it's like painting. Okay, if you put your painting on the wall, it's sometimes super important to perplex people and have them not understand it. It just depends on what you're going for here. You know what I'm saying? But if you are making a painting that is about something current, and you feel like this is a statement that you need to present to people, you might not want to go too obscure with that one. You might want to make sure that you're landing, because otherwise you're preaching to the choir, or even the choir doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, and it doesn't land. And then you have lost that opportunity to make that statement for real. Oftentimes, and that's kind of why I will get my jollies off rapping and do a lot of my more obscure and abstract references in those songs. And then in songs that are like a song like Yesterday, or a song where I'm actually trying to like make a point, I'm a lot more careful to be more straightforward. Gotcha. I don't think that answered your question. I have a slight cold right now, so my voice is a little bit different. So I hope that.
I thought I was going to wake up with a weird voice today too, dude. I started getting sick, and we were printing until late last night. Ugh. So anyway, you did answer the question. Honestly, you do not have to be sad or depressed to write a sad or depressing song.
Oh, what was the other part of his question? There was a second one. It was a 3-part question that the guy from this movie asked.
So is it better if it really happened to you?
Okay. I love that question, because there's very few of us that these things actually really happen to. And when you hear a rapper talk about something that did really happen, you can usually tell. You can usually hear the experience. And so, what I think is great is that some of the best experience rap that I've ever heard has been, you know, more on the hardcore side of rap from out of New York.
I think Griselda epitomizes that.
100%. I think Cool G Rap did too. But the thing is, you know, with Cool G Rap, it was still about the rapping. You feel me? With Griselda, it's still about the rapping, you know, and that's to me when you can tell. It's like, oh, it's still about the rapping, but they're putting their experience into it. Oftentimes when you hear people over embellish the experiences, you can kind of tell because it's now about the experience, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have nothing against with people embellishing the experience, because once again, it all comes down to what you are communicating. What is your intention here? I want to say I have no problem lying in a song as long as I'm not lying is the wrong word. I have no problem telling a story about something that didn't happen to me as long as I'm not trying to present it as a story that happened to me.
Right.
You feel me?
It's the third part was, do you have to be in love to write a love song? Do you have to be in love?
Absolutely not. In fact, it's probably harder. You know, I guess these questions are all about the individual. Me, personally, I don't have to be in love to write a love song. I don't have to be depressed to write a sad, you know, but have I ever not been in love? I think I've been in love ever since the day I was born. So there's that problem. I don't know that I've ever really spent much time not in love. So I've probably been in love every time I've ever written a love song, but I've also probably been in love every time I've written a sad song. So maybe it's all connected. Right.
So next one has to do with movies in a roundabout way, because I know you're a gigantic fan of graffiti. And I was just wondering where the film Style Wars like fits into your origin story, because it was big for me, but I found out about it in the 90s. You know, I wasn't put on early.
Style Wars for me was in the 80s. But when it was a VHS thing, it was when we were trading, and I was a guy that had 2 VCRs, and I didn't grow up in a household that had money, and neither did my friends. So the fact that we had 2 VCRs kind of was like a huge privilege. You know, the fact that my mom was down to spend money to have 2 of these things, like she understood the mission. She knew what I was doing. I was, you know, trying to build up our library. But due to that, when somebody had something, when the Style Wars video showed up in somebody's possession, I made sure that all the homies had a copy. You know what I'm saying? And so I was one of the go-tos. If somebody had a you know, it was the same with all kind of like the cult classics. But since we're talking about Style Wars specifically, I can't remember exactly what year, but one year, and I'm going to take a guess and say,
I feel like it came out in 83, but it must have been on like PBS or something.
I guarantee you I didn't get a copy till probably 87 or 88. But once I got a copy, everybody got a copy. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, to me, before Style Wars was Wild Style. I had that one first, and then I had Beat Street. Style Wars was a little bit later.
I didn't get Style Wars until we met the guys in East Oakland, Tommy and Corey and their neighbors, and that was when we got put on to Style Wars.
So that was like the late 90s.
Right.
Yeah, like I had a record store. We were selling it in the late 90s. By the late 90s, we were able to order it probably from TRC or from one of the distro spots. But we were selling Style Wars at that point.
Right. But I mean, did you watch it repeatedly and get game off of it, or was it just one of those ones that you knew that everybody needed to see?
That one, again, was like a record. You only watched it once, but then you would just put it on and let it play. So it was like in the background all the time. Same with Wild Style. Same with all the hip-hop films, specifically the graffiti ones. Again, I never got into skating. And so when the skate films and the skate videos started making the circuits, the rounds, I would get them because people would give them to me, but I knew how people used them. They played them like records. They played them on their TV as if it was an album. We were doing that with the graffiti tapes.
We discussed the download culture, and your attitude was pretty much like, please download my music, burn it, give it to your girl. Like, I want it to be out there. I feel like this broken record, but pun intended, but now streaming is so weird. You know, it's like there's not a direct income stream necessarily coming from that. And you know, I mean, I know that there's music, I mean, that there's money, but it's such a sad amount compared to like what you...
it's more than you used to get for the downloads.
Well, yeah, good point. Very good point.
And if you would have asked me back then, hey, what if 1 million people downloaded your music? How would you feel? I still would be like, that's 1 million people that I have the potential to sell a ticket to, a shirt to. You know what I mean? 1 million people. That's platinum back then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so the idea of streaming, before I get mad at it, I just remember how I feel about downloading. And I go, well, this is 1 million people that are allowing me in and giving me the opportunity to convince them to buy a pair of socks.
Right, or a hat, or beanie,
a hat,
or whatever.
Or a ticket to the show, or whatever. You know what I mean? And so I'm not against it. Do I think artists should make more from the download platforms? I do, but not because artists aren't selling records.
Right.
Because I come from a world that never really sold a lot of records. You know what I'm saying?
Right, which is what you were saying as a kid. You were just like, nah, that's not what we're doing. We're trying to do these shows. We're trying to sell these shirts.
Yeah. My issue with the payments from streaming is not that, oh, they're not paying artists enough, but it's that they're making a lot of money.
Right.
So who are they sharing it with? You know what I'm saying?
Zero
it's like,
people.
Exactly. And so to me, it's more like, yo, you guys need to share some more of that money, or create a medical fund for artists,
or just build schools, or do some shit.
Well, do something for the arts, specifically.
Right, build art schools,
because the money is being made. The money is being made from musicians, and so why don't you create some sort of health insurance situation for musicians that don't have health insurance, or something? Figure out how to share that money. Then I would be a little less. I would be a little less anti-streaming platform.
Right. Well, isn't ASCAP or BMI famously saved a mutual friend of ours when he was having a lot of problems with drugs, and they helped him a lot. I thought it was a program that came through one of those licensing companies.
That's different, though.
Indirectly.
Those licensing companies have been around for a lot longer, and they also they seem to respect the idea that they wouldn't exist without these artists. Right. So that doesn't surprise me. I mean, let me get it. It does surprise me, but it surprises it, but also it doesn't. I can make sense of that in my head, that they would be faster to do something like that because they've been here longer and they've been dealing with artists longer, and they probably do have a stronger grasp on that. But
when we went to make our app, we've been on the FM radio since '99, but we went to do a streaming app, and boy, you had to do the ASCAP and the BMI, and you have to report what you play and the whole thing. I mean, those guys don't play around at all.
No, yeah.
It's amazing in the sense that even if, my little mobile app, gets you $50 or something, I'm proud of that for sure. Because you just said in an interview, I think it was the Danny Brown interview, that if you got 50 people fucking with you, 500 people, whatever the number, service those people with what you got. Alan, the alchemist said he has a microbrewery, and he just has a bunch of people that just love his beer, and he just makes it and he services those people. And he said, new people come and people bring new people into the microbrewery, but my core people are here, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our hustle around here. We have our regulars and they keep the bills paid for sure. All right. Let's see. I have another one here. Oh, this one could be great. Lyrics from, remember the song Boom that you did with Grouch and Eli?
Vaguely.
So in that song, you said you rolled a station wagon with bad suspension, full of house speakers, diesel, with the tailpipe dragging.
It was diesel engine too. I couldn't buy regular gas. I had to pull into the diesel spot.
So you and I are the house speakers in the back of your station wagon old.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Was it like lowered to be cool or anything, or was it just you were just mobbing?
Not. No, man. It was
No.
It was a hand-me-down from my mom.
Okay.
It had wood siding. Remember those?
No, it really did.
It really
Oh, you're
did.
in Minnesota. That was a normal thing. You'd see those.
It was not a normal thing in Minnesota or anywhere. It was it was only a normal thing on television. Actually, TV and movies was the only place where you actually seen that. I was the only person.
Yeah, the Brady Bunch dad would come home in that shit, and you're just like, whoa.
I knew one kid who had a wood-sided like Bronco from the 70s that he had been handed down from his folks. And my mom gave me, it was a 79 Wagoneer, wood siding, the kind that was starting to get a little boxier. It wasn't slick in any way whatsoever, but it was definitely a National Lampoon Chevy Chase vacation vehicle. And it was diesel. It was like, why?
Diesel.
The fact that it was diesel lets me know that this was 100% marketed to the families that took vacation. My family didn't take vacations. My mom couldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? She had a bunch of kids, and anyway, but she somehow got this car on the cheap. And then when she got her next car on the cheap, she kicked the station wagon out to me. But I remember just being like, man, the movie National Lampoon's Vacation came out, and immediately people wanted a car like that. So the car companies were like, yo, let's pop out a bunch of these over the next 2-3 years. It probably lasted. And
the family truckster.
Basically, yeah. And I ended up with one for a little while. Yeah. And I had the house speakers in the back. I actually had speakers that I would carry in and out. I would take them and put them in the car and hook them up if I knew I was going to be like trying to like floss. And then when I got home, I'd have to bring them back into my bedroom because they were my speakers. It's not like I had two sets of speakers. You know what I'm saying? It's like they were the speakers that went to my system. Yeah.
You mentioned being a wedding DJ. I was a mobile DJ since 6th grade, and we used to take the whole house system, like, Dad, please, please, please. All right. And literally take my dad's stereo to do gigs and then just put it back. And there was no scratching. It wasn't that era at all. It was Lady in Red and you know what I'm saying? Like the 45s when you go to the record store and there's the top 40 literally in 45s.
Yeah. I lived that life. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was where DJing started for me, was like the 6th grader that was, DJing this 8th grader's dance. With my pink tie.
I had done a few parties and was feeling myself. And so I went into one of the mobile DJ companies here in town and was like, this is what I do. Why don't you hire me so I could do this for you? Because I do this, but what I don't know how to do is to get gigs. So I want to do this. You get me some gigs while I build up the confidence to eventually step to a club. That was my plan. And that is how I met my mentor. His name was Hassan Omari. He was Kenyan, and he had moved here to, see what he could do with his life here. So anyway, he had started this company, and the company was going well, and it was mostly wedding receptions. And when he hired me, he let me know. He's like, look, young blood, this ain't what you think it is. This is not, you're not going to be at these weddings cutting it up and doing, fly shit. And I'm like, yes, I am. And he was right. But what I did is I worked for him for years. And this was before I was Slug from Atmosphere. This was 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. And he taught me how to get in front of people who I don't share commonality with and still get them on their feet. If not with the records, then with how I talk to them. He taught me how to get on the mic. He taught me how to speak to an audience that wasn't there for me, which helped a lot. Not so much with me starting to rap, but once we started to go out on the road, I would find myself sometimes in front of audiences that weren't there for me. And I would figure out how to talk in between the songs to hook them, which to this day is one of the qualities that I feel like we have that has enabled us to continue this career that we have for as long as we've been doing it, is that I'm not afraid to get on the mic and talk to some people that are not here to see me, and I owe a lot of that to Hassan. Hassan is a huge part of, because I used to watch him, and here was this Kenyan man DJing a wedding in Bull Pussy, Minnesota, somewhere out in the sticks where there's not even black people out there. So who is this African with this African accent? But he's rocking them, and he's you know, and he knows, oh no, that's not the AC/DC you want. I got what you want right here. And you know, like you said, the woman in red, and you know what I'm saying, it's just like wait, was it woman? No, it was Lady in Red. What was Krista Berg? Yeah.
Wasn't Woman in Red as a flick?
Woman in Red was Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder had a song called Woman in Red, and
I'm pretty sure it was some old '80s flick.
It was a movie too. I think Gene Wilder might have been in that film.
Stevie, shout out to Stevie Wonder.
Shout out to Stevie, who Anthony says is the only musical genius alive, because here's a guy that can write an amazing love song, but he has never even seen a naked woman.
It's unbelievable, bro. It's the first music that my dad thought it was worthy when I was a little baby to put the headphones on my head and let me hear songs in the key of life. And so that was my first impression of what music was, is Stevie.
That's a good one to listen to through headphones.
Very thankful for that. Very thankful for that.
But yeah. Hassan put me on, man. He taught me how to get in front of crowds, and crowds that don't want to hear me. And you know, and here was the gag I pulled as a wiki DJ doing wedding receptions for, you know, country ass white people. I wasn't really allowed to wiki, but my blend game was insane. I would go from 1999 to Moni to, you know, and I was doing mashups before.
On 45s or 12 inches?
12 inches, 45s, whatever you gave me. Sometimes I would have to play something on a CD and then blend it on the turntable. Like, we had all of it, you know. Never used a cassette, but we had a cassette player in there, because once in a while some woman might come up and go, "Can you play this song? It's really important." And I'm like, "Okay, let me cue it up. I'll play it over here." You know. Right. But the Hokey Pokey on 45 was the real trip, because I would put one copy on each turntable and make it go, you put your right foot in, you put your right foot out, you put your right foot in, and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey, and then you put your left foot in, you put your right foot out, you put your left foot in. You know, I would freak it to mess people up once they got, you know what I mean? Like, once they were in their hokey pokey zone, then I would start like messing with them, you know, and I learned that from him. That was a thing he did. And he wasn't even that kind of DJ. He wasn't trying to mix and scratch and shit. He was just trying to he was
pause mixing,
but he
was having fun.
He showed me how to flip the hokey pokey like that. And that, to me, it spoke to me, because I'm like, yo, this is some De La Soul shit that you're doing right now. You don't even know it. You know what I mean? Like, this is some Prince Paul shit you're doing right now, you know?
So lots of albums lately and lots of touring lately. What's the difference between navigating those two things? Because I know they're both so much work.
Well, we were able to get a lot done during the lockdown. We well, I guess we've just been busy for a minute. I got a fire lit under me probably around 2017 to start recording more, because I felt like, yo, you know, back in like 96, 97, 98, 99, when I was, you know, I was working full time. I had a job. I had a kid, but I was able to get so much music recorded. And now that I no longer have to go work for another person, if I'm at home, I'm not on tour, and the kids are at school, why can't I write more? Why am I not pushing myself to write more? So,
right. Yeah.
In about 2017, I started trying to take on more writing exercises. I was just trying to like really kind of fill my space and my time with that type of creative thinking. And it paid off, because I got into this space where my muscles were all activated, and I just started it going, and I haven't stopped. So now when I don't have any prior commitments, I sit here and I'll write a song. And then the lockdown happened. And suddenly it was like, yo, I have a lot more time, because I'm not even touring now, you know?
Right. But didn't you turn into super dad, teacher, that guy too?
I did. But, you know, that's only 6 hours a day, and that's at the studio. I was bringing the kids to the studio to get them out of the house. I didn't want them to be near their toys and their screens and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I would bring them here, and upstairs from here, they would, we'd get school going. And I had to be real hands-on with the younger one. The older one was already kind of tech savvy, and you know, he was doing 5th grade stuff, so he grasped it. You know what I mean? So I just,
because there was definitely a tech element to this whole thing you guys had to do, right?
100%, yeah. So he was able to navigate most of it himself with just maybe a little bit of moderate steering on my part. But the first grader needed a lot more of my involvement. And so I basically got to watch him learn how to read. I mean, he understood reading, but I got to watch him like excel and his ability to, you know, understand, comprehend what he was reading and all this stuff. I got to sit here and watch this like bloom, and it was kind of an amazing experience. And in the meantime, though, I was at the studio all the time, and so there was always ideas going around. So I would jot things down, whatever. And then when school was out, I'd send them home, and then I would go to work and spend the next 4 hours working on music. And that's how we made this album, the most recent one. The So Many Other Realities Exist Simultaneously. We made that during the lockdown. Basically from roughly August or early September of 2020 through about the same time of year in 2021. In summer of 2021, I went on tour, my first tour since lockdown. I went out with Cypress Hill, and I used that as a time to like listen to the project over and over and over while I rode bike and take notes on any things I wanted to change, edit, throw away, whatever. Or take notes on talking myself out of changing and editing things, etc. But I came home from that tour with like, okay, this is the project. And Ant was like, we need a little bit more. And so he gave me a couple more songs, and we ended up, you know, wrapping that up probably around November of 2021, I think. But it also, you know, after we finished it and turned it in, I started the next one. But I guess all that to say is I've just been in this space now where I'm just constantly writing and creating. And
well, as someone who's been listening to your writing, yeah, I've been listening to your writing, I guess, since the very beginning, unless it wasn't, you know, available on Napster or whatever. But this latest record, the writing, like the lyricism in it is really next level. And I don't think it's very, I mean, Nas, there's other rappers that do it, but as they get older, they literally, Merce is a good example too, just get way better at writing rap.
Oh yeah.
Like way better. So that was my overall impression of that new album, was just the writing, and whoa.
Thank you. And it is a phenomenon that I've been noticing with some rappers getting better as they get older, and I would be very happy to be a part of that contingent. Merce is one of them, though. Evidence is one of them, actually. Where
Evidence is an excellent example.
He's always been a great rapper, but right now the stuff that he is saying is just like, I have to. Every 2 bars, I have to pause it and go, man, why didn't I think of that? You know what I mean? It's just like it's amazing. Ali is another one.
Merce had one on his brand new song. He says, what does he say? He says, "How could I fall for a girl who's never seen The Wire? I guess there must be more." Get it? Ugh.
That's funny.
I thought that was awesome. I had to text the man and be like, "Hey, buddy."
I didn't even catch that line. So that shows my ability to focus.
And I don't think that's him listening to rap. I think that was him just rapping on Twitch for 5 years straight every day for 3 hours. That unbelievable calisthenics that dude was doing.
Well, also, here's a thing I noticed a long time ago, is that I like to do interviews from the car. I learned that about myself like probably 20 years ago. Like, why do I like to do interviews in my car? Why do I like to take meetings in my car? And it's because my peripheral vision while I'm driving we're distracting my peripheral vision, which somehow makes it easier for me to focus on what's in front of me. And so that peripheral vision being distracted allows me to not only drive, but to really focus on what I'm being asked, or focus on what that conversation is in the meeting, etc.
Right.
And so I think as you age and more of your peripheral thought is being exercised by all of the things that you have to deal with, take care of, you know, Merce has got like 9 million kids, right? So that kind of, that all of that going on, all of those apps running in the background is actually making this app more concise, you know, and I think there's something to that. to the point where I always wanted to develop something to put on your laptop that was a screensaver that actually was you just on a road driving, so that I could see it on either side of my worksheet in the middle while I'm writing. You know what I'm saying? Because
that's genius. Do you think that that's the secret behind Hot Ones? Is you're just so fucking tripped out about the hot food that you have the peripheral blurred out and you just focus on the question?
That's maybe, man. I've never been on that show. I don't know, but maybe, yeah. Because that's. I mean, here's the rub, right? That's how old people talk. That is a way for you, or for the journalist, to get you to disarm. You know, it's like, because that's what you got to do. You got to disarm us if you want us to talk about the things that we haven't said a million times. If you want answers from me that I haven't already given, you got to make sure that not only am I comfortable, confident, in my zone, but also you're there with me. So maybe the hot ones, we're both going, oh my God, this is hot. So now we're in this together. Or, you know, let's go stand out in the rain and do it, because now we're both soaking wet. We're in this together. And it's just, it disarms the environment. It disarms the situation, you know? And I think that's the key to great conversations, great, you know, and coffee and weed.
Dude. Yes, coffee and weed. Are you guys legal?
Yes, we brand new legal. So they haven't handed out licenses yet. They haven't figured out who gets to you know, get involved. But they did go legal, so now it's at least decrim for you to have it. To you know what I'm saying? It's like huge step. And truthfully, the most important step is that, you know, as far as
I agree,
how they figure out how to actually do this commercially. It's obviously very interesting to watch, to keep an eye on, and even be involved with, because there's a lot of room for inequities to be exploited here. You got to make sure that there's, you know, we
watched it happen here, and it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting to watch. Everybody was jumping on the licenses, and then a bunch of really cool people like sold everything they had locally, business wise, so that they could get in on the dispensary game. The taxes were annoying. The transportation of the funds was annoying. There was all these things that were roadblocks for them at first. They had these beautiful build outs. They were making no money. And then about a year ago, a Canadian company came in and bought every dispensary in my hometown. And they all got health benefits. They got $2 raises. They absolutely just swept in and said, oh, no. Sillies. This is not how this goes. Would you like a big paycheck? And all these people that busted ass for 5 years were like, yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. They were out. The big giant corporation came in, and everybody, I hate to say this, but everybody won. The weed's better. It's cheaper. Everybody got paid more benefits. It was super weird the way it went down.
Yeah.
But that's 5 or 6 years past where you guys are at right now.
Yeah, that is interesting. You know, I definitely pay more attention than I admit to, but again, a lot of that just kind of comes back to a history and experience that I have here as being somebody who was involved in the black market for so long, mostly as a client. And you know, I want to see this, but I want to see it actually be beneficial and not wish that we were still black market. You know what I'm saying? And so,
right. My wizards that I knew, like the dudes that were complete wizards in the black market, stayed there. They
stayed in the black market.
You know,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, that is that. And I kind of do anticipate, because now it's like, well, it's going to be a little bit easier to move what you have in the black market, because it's been decrim for somebody to come and, you know, your clients aren't leaving the house, you know, scared to get in the car with an ounce of weed, you know.
And I'm scared to get in the car with an ounce of weed years old. It's, you know, it's been a wild ride being a stoner for as long as I've been a stoner. So yeah, it's surreal. It really is. I'm happy for you guys. That's really cool, because I didn't even know that it lowered my blood pressure, but it did. It seriously actually did lower my blood pressure.
Congratulations. That's
yeah.
That's a great thing.
Isn't that a great feat at this age, to just get that blood pressure down by natural means? Big time, right?
Yep.
So anyway, the album and the tour, different animals, obviously, all together. Making album, going on a tour. Because, I mean, you're doing an exorbitant, I think that's the word, amount of touring lately, I feel like.
I don't think so. You know,
No?
nah.
Or are you just making up for lost time, maybe?
Neither. I think prior to the lockdown, we had a protocol of attempting to do between 12 and 16 weeks out of the year. And now I think this year we're probably going to see 12. You know, and so I think I think it might just seem like a lot because of the fact that we just went through this thing where nobody was on the road. But like even the year before, I mean, dude, our last show before lockdown was February 28th. It was like literally 2 weeks before the world shut down. You know what I mean? Like we
wild.
Just snuck in. I was wearing masks on that tour before people were talking about COVID because of flu season. So our very first show, our second show, it was like January 8th or something like that. We had got to Michigan, and all the news there was like 2/3 of the state has the flu. So I went and bought some masks for the Ubers because I was like, man, I cannot catch the flu. I'm going to lose a week of shows. And there's just way too many people eating off this right now. You know what I'm saying? I just couldn't see it. So I'm in the back of Ubers with masks on, and Uber drivers are all like, what is, are you sick? Should you be in the car? And I'm like, nah, I'm not sick, but I'm doing this because I travel and I can't risk getting sick. But I could tell I was making them nervous. You know what I'm saying? And so the funny part was I had no idea that, 8 weeks later, the whole world would be doing it. You know what I'm saying? It's like that, and I wonder if any of those Uber drivers ever thought about me and thought, he's the one that started COVID, because I might have been the first person they saw rocking masks in the year 2020.
Ground zero, patient one.
But everybody's got that story. It's like, oh, I had it before they could test for it. I'm pretty sure I had it because I was sick. I was super sick. And so I wonder if any of those Uber drivers ever blamed me for why they think they had COVID before COVID was trending. But
man, I owned a restaurant through COVID. That was some wild shit.
I believe that.
We didn't stop, bro. People couldn't come in anymore. But dude, we sold just as much food as we did when they could come in the door. It was an intense situation because it was gloves and masks and steamed up glasses and everybody just going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, we
at least at lunchtime.
We stopped working altogether. I didn't take any shows until the Cypress Hill tour, which started like end of July 2021. So I did 16 months off the road, no shows. And that's the longest that I've gone without a show since 1995.
I think I talked to you on Discord right in the midst of that, trying to hook up a Twitch interview with you and Merce or something. And
Merce was
you and I spoke for like 2 minutes.
Merce was interviewing me and Goldwatch, right? Is that what that was?
Oh, right. Yeah. Thank you for that tripped out video, and that record was all awesome. That was so COVID, that whole situation.
It's funny because we made it pre-COVID. The record.
Oh, wow.
That album was actually. Oh, what a crazy story. So let's get back to talking about the new one. But first, let me tell you, there was 2 albums that came out, Whenever and The Day Before Halloween. And what both of those records were that nobody even knows was those were a soundtrack for a television show on YouTube.
I think you mentioned that somewhere because that's not news to me.
Okay, yeah. We had been approached to create a soundtrack for a television show that was going to premiere on YouTube Red. And so we created 12 songs and then 8 bumpers. Bumpers meaning this will be something that goes underneath dialogue or underneath a scene. Yep. And then the songs will be used like normal soundtrack style inside of the show. So each episode got 2 songs and a bumper. And so the whole thing fell apart. Like as we were done turning it in, suddenly the lawyers couldn't get it together with our lawyers. Like there was too much.
Oh, wow.
So we just kept the albums, and then I put one out that was called Whenever, and those were the songs. And then the bumpers, and it's like, what should we do with these? They're cool. They were just instrumental. There was no vocals. And I was like, well, give them to me. And he's like, well, do you want me to sequence them or anything? I was like, nope, just give them to me as demos as is. And so that's why some of those songs are a minute long and some are 3 minutes long. He just gave them all to me as is. And I wrote to them as is. And we put that out as an album called The Day Before Halloween. And super weird, super weird. Anyway, enough of the...
I made up lore in my own brain about that record and why it was called that and all kinds of shit and never had anyone to ask. So here it goes. The Day Before Halloween was probably, depending on the year, pretty dark for you guys because you guys were finding out that Daniel Dumoulin was not doing okay.
I didn't know that yet.
Oh.
I had no idea that was going on. I did not find out about his passing until after his passing. And I didn't even know, I didn't even know that he was struggling like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, all of us at this age have things going on. And so just like me, you, him, like you're talking about, you know, blood pressure, you know, we all got issues, you know what I'm saying? And so
I had to go home and take my medicine before we did this interview. I was like, oh, I didn't take my medicine. Let me run home real quick. Like, yeah, I know the drill.
Yeah. I wasn't in the know about, you know, how seriously ill he was until he had already passed, you know? And I don't know. I mean, it would be hard for me to like, honestly tell you, if anybody who knew, you know what I'm saying? Like anything, we're living, we're doing, we're working, we're going to school, we're doing our thing. And unless somebody calls you and goes, this is what's happening with me, you don't really know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, cause when you just check in with people, you're like, how are you? Everybody's like, oh, I'm cool. You know, I'm okay. Living the dream. That's the sarcastic white guy thing to say. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, the truth is, you know, again, everybody's got shit going on. And for the most part, we don't really share that shit with each other because nobody wants to hear you complain about your shit. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I didn't know. But what I'll say is this though, upon finding out after the fact, it hit home that I had spent that time excited about putting out a project, scared about trying to figure out how to trick or treat with my kids during COVID, you know, all of these things I was thinking about that particular weekend, because that was a Friday, Saturday, where he was somewhere else going through what he was going through. You know, that's the thing that I take away from. That's part of my pain. That's part of the pain that I feel with the rest of the world is when I go, oh man, this is what's happening in this part of the world right now. What was I doing? Oh, I was frustrated with my kid about homework. Why would I waste his life and my life being frustrated about that when there's traumatic shit happening here? That's my problem. That's how that's where I hit roadblocks, you know? And so in hindsight, thinking about that was unfortunate. You know, we'd been working, during...
You've kind of written about that pain before, honestly.
Yeah. You know,
absolutely.
In 2020, well, pre-2020, 2019, I had already started working on, because you know, when my record comes out, that means the label's had it for a year.
Right.
So that Halloween record was turned in by 2019 Halloween, and it came out 2020, the day before Halloween, right? So in 2019, I was working on the record that ultimately turned out to be called Word. And I had a song with Doom and A$AP Rock on that record. And I remember both of their reactions to me giving them that song. Like, yo, will you rap to this? You know what I'm saying? And giving them my verse too, because I knew in my verse I'd rapped a particular way. And it's not necessarily anybody's favorite way of rapping or anybody's...
I've never heard Doom rap like that, by the way. Ever.
But I rapped in a style that was intentionally meant to make them go, huh, why did he go about it that way? And what I love is that it had A$AP come at it in this weird triplicate manner, and it had Doom do this thing where it's like, okay, Doom is an alter ego, and he's got other alter egos. They're not other Doom alter egos. Daniel has other alter egos that he does because Doom is dope. So then he did this one and he did this one. But right now, one of his alter egos literally just created an alter ego within itself in this song. And I was like, holy shit. I was so excited that he did that. And you know, it's crazy because since his passing, I got quiet. I became less outgoing about talking about the experience of making that song with him, because I didn't want to feel exploitive, or I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so many feelings,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? There's so many feelings involved that I just was like, you know what? Let's just have it there for the people and let the people listen to it.
The only thing we did that changed programming wise is we always play 2 Doom songs now, always back to back. That was just my tribute. We don't even really make a big deal out of it, but he just like, hey, if we're playing him or you're requesting him, you're getting 2 songs from his production or from his alter ego or whatever. But that's always been my thing, because yeah, like I said, that was more than that one hurt. For the culture too, man. The world is just not as cool. It's period. It's just not as cool. Okay. This is vague, but it's, I think, a good question. Just to close it out, could you distill like what hip hop means to you? Like, just in general, like,
for me, the thing that drew me to hip hop was the voice. I was hearing people say things that I'd never heard people say before, and they were saying it in a language that I understood. And that was as a kid. Fat Boys, Melly Mel, these people were saying things that it was like, that's my kind of humor, or that's my kind of frustration. Even as a kid, I understood these voices, and I understood the words that they chose to use. And that's what separated me from my parents and from the old people. The old people didn't get it. They didn't understand it. They weren't feeling it. And I was. So I knew that this was a special line being drawn in the sand. And I stood on this side of the line. As years went on, I realized what really was happening was I was recognizing that this culture gave a voice to the voiceless. So it wasn't about these voices I was hearing that were saying these things that I understood, or that they were speaking in a language that I understood or related to. But it was that this is the first time that those particular voices were being uplifted like that. When you go back through time, you could still find the griots and the important voices that were speaking, but they weren't getting that commercial upliftment that hip hop got. When Fat Boys came along and started selling a ton of records, and then Run DMC started selling a ton of records. So I'm no longer talking about Sugar Hill Gang or the Grandmaster Flash stuff. Like, that stuff was what really got me into it, for starters. But when Run DMC happened, Fat Boys too, but specifically Run DMC, that's when I knew this is not for my dad. My dad liked Sugar Hill Gang. It was like disco to him.
Right.
It was a different kind of disco, right? But Run DMC, my dad was like, why are these teenagers yelling at me right now? You know what I'm saying? And so I thought, oh yeah, those teenagers, that's for me. I want to yell at you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, but now in hindsight, what I really see is that it wasn't so much the voices. It was the fact that those voices were not supposed to be uplifted. They were not supposed to be heard. What is happening with counterculture that is allowing this moment to happen? And that is, to me, what this shit is about. And that's what I see inside of the rap music. That's what I see inside of the breakdancing, because again, that was basically the youth in the city taking the space that had prior been used for the fine arts community or used for these other communities, and the youth were like, nope, we're not gonna ask for it, we're gonna take some of that space. And it got commercially, it was branded, you know what I'm saying? And graffiti specifically, and I want to point out, graffiti was the last one to get its commercial success, but it was technically the first of this particular culture to start chipping in and taking it. Like, we're going to take this space, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's on the trains. You have to see it. There's no way for you to avoid seeing this. And to me, that is really what hip hop's energy, presence, vibration, whatever words you want to use, that is hip hop to me. I think that even to this day, as a writer, as a rapper, I look to graffiti to inspire me, because that is, it's unequivocal. There's nothing else in the world like that to me, aside from nuclear weapons. Is the closest thing in this world to what graffiti is to me, because of the way it takes up the space, how intrusive it is, and what it has to say. It's very loud. It's in your face, you know? And so now in hindsight, I can say this. I didn't know this as a 12-year-old because I didn't fully process it. But in hindsight, I could say this culture gave voices to the voiceless at a time when, like, we needed it most. And I'll tell you, I'm not as big of a conspiracy theorist as I used to be when I was younger, but I do believe that the federal government saw that. And just like they saw the Black Panther movement, just like they saw jazz, just like they saw these countercultures, I think the federal government actually involved itself in jazz and flooded jazz with heroin because it saw how it was bringing Black people and white people together. You feel me? I feel like the federal government obviously got involved in the Black Panther movement, but when it saw hip hop doing what it was doing, I'm not the conspiracy theorist that I used to be, but I'm not going to get in your way if you want to make the case that the feds, you know, put the guns in hip hop. The feds put the drugs in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? For the same reason. They had to break up what was going on because it was too powerful and too productive and too positive, and it was too possibly the thing that was going to bring people together. It still is the thing that's bringing Black and white people together, people of color, white people, and everybody. You feel me? And it's global now. And so they couldn't control it. So instead what they did is they put the emphasis on making sure that the popular shit was not the shit that brought people together. You could still find the stuff that brings people together, but that's not what's popular. And I'm not one of these guys that are like, oh, popular rap sucks, because it doesn't. Because if you really look inside, it's still the voiceless talking. And they're still talking about the stuff that needs to be heard. You know, for me, I just need these artists to stop hurting each other. I just need these artists. I got no problem with what any of these artists are doing artistically. I love it, honestly. It's more, rap pop is more exciting to me right now than it was 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? I just need these artists to stop getting killed. And to stop killing. And to just get yourself out of these situations. You know what I'm saying? It's like saying, you know, it's that same old story, man. Like, it's hard. I get it. You get some money and you don't want to suddenly be the dude that's got money that left the hood. You know, you still want to have one foot in the gutter. You know what I'm saying? I get all that, but there's a way to do that as a leader as opposed to as a participant in. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and I know the pressures. I have my own version of that. You know what I'm saying? I came up with people who have expectations of me because of who I am and where I live and how I've been my whole life, you know, but I still have to try to figure out how to juxtapose within that in a manner that is productive as opposed to regressive.
Hey dude, I appreciate you. Lots and lots.
Thank you for taking the time to let me take some time. Have a
yeah, go dad up.
Have a great one.
You too. And sorry we missed you last time you were in town because you were in Tahoe and we just couldn't make it happen.
I get it. I understand. No problem. I'll get to Reno next time.
Okay, yeah, do something in Reno. That would be fun. And I want you to see this room in person, dude. It's cool.
It looks cool.
And we'll work on we'll work on something in the future if we could figure it out.
It looks cool. All right.
I have a big fat package that I'm sending you guys via your brother. So I'm emailing with him. And so you're going to get some cool shit that's made right here soon.
That's what's up. Peace out, Bomb Shelter. Take care of yourselves. Hurrah.
Appreciate you, bud. Later.
In tomorrow I see no promise, and yesterday was like today.